Expected to make it, so
Logical Raptors fanatic.
shoot trying to miss. Like every shot
Logical Raptors fanatic.
try to make it, so I was gonna act surprised.
A fun guy. Obviously,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
No
Project Truth.
has contacted me, and I see all the stuff that, like, you guys see. I dream like they dream. Yeah. Yeah, I want,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
Yeah, so they keep dreaming. I dream too.
Salute, real ones. Project Truth always. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors fanatic. And today, I think this is a good point halfway through the season, kind of like a bit of a momentum shift in the team, but I think we've built up enough knowledge about how the Raptors grow over time that we can now understand how this plan is going to go forward depending on offense by looking at the past and seeing what Masai thinks is kind of like probably the way an elite team should run at the top in championship form because we've seen a championship team from him and what he thinks a championship team is, right? So continuing on that thread, the mold system is aiming towards something, right? This all works in a way that initially looks complicated at first, but builds up into something very organic and very tight. But even though this is what people see, right, at this moment in juncture, so it's a little bit of like an iceberg of what you see now isn't fully what everything is entirely, right? So we're gonna go through just the philosophy of the Raptors and kind of Nick Nurse's philosophy, I think, dovetails in with what we're doing right now and explain out kind of the structure within the chaos, right? There's a lot of different things going on. It may not look organized, but this is very organized, very planned, very engineered. Everything is very, very like studied in detail. There's reasons for everything, and we're going to talk about some today. I'm not going to hit every one, but let's start to open the lens a little bit more on just maybe the past so we can have a good grasp on the future. Let's dive into it a little bit deeper. Enjoy.
Cedric and Gon, Check FM, we are French radio. You said you want to win, but what is your perspective in regards to the new trend in NBA, all of this team trying to build super team, and obviously the Raptors, we are not in the same mindset. So how do you see like a timeline for another shot at winning again?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact timeline for us is. It's hard to say when you're developing players and players are growing, and we're going to give them that opportunity to grow. Yeah, listen, there's going to be super teams and super teams, and there's going to be 3 superstars on one team, and maybe it might get as many as 10 one day. Why not taking that route? At least not for now. Yeah, our route is to grow our young players and be excited about what we have and rely on Nick and his great staff. I think Nick has done an incredible job in developing our players and giving our opportunities, the opportunities for our players to play. That's the route we're going to take, and sometimes it might be slow, and sometimes it might be painful, but you watched the summer league, like some of it was exciting to watch and some of it was painful to watch, like that's the growth of the game, and that's what we want to feel as an organization. And I know that's what the fans too, really appreciate seeing and seeing the growth of our team.
So you could hear Masai's plan to get back to the championship level, right? It's not a big three or whatever. It's it's a team way is kind of what he said there. Like what we're doing is we're gonna go the team route, develop our guys over time, which increases our options when those guys play together because of the chemistry and things built on from year to year to year to year. You're building up on players' relationships and what they can do together to the point where it's hard to stop because every option is managed and taken care of and known and seen and have been played through. So a lot of things are based when you're working towards the system that we have and a system that relies on your players having several options at their hands. It's not a willy-nilly system in a sense that anybody can do anything at any time. There are rules and structure within the system, and we play off who has the ball at the time, and we do a lot of different things, but it's based on timing and what's going on the court and knowing in relationship to where the defense is and the offense is, right? That's I can't really get into the defense part and how that shifts the offense. We'll mention it, but we're going to focus on offense today. So I'm going to get into the highest level of Masai offense and what I like what the picture looks like when it's built to. Because I think right now, obviously, we're in a position where we're young and we're growing. And Masai said it's going to be exhilarating at times and it's going to be ugly at times, right? There's going to be painful moments. But how does he know he can say that? It's based on the system that our players are learning. He knew that preempting people saying there's going to be stuff that looks great and at times it's going to look ugly because that's how we develop. We mix the great with ugly so the ugly part gets worked on to become better to good, then great. And then that becomes the great we rely on. It's this kind of ever kind of it's a ecosystem on itself in a sense of the way we develop on the offensive side. Okay, one big key characteristic in this is based on our defense, actually. And the players we bring top level defenders, versatile defenders, and we teach them to defend multiple different things. And usually those players aren't the greatest offensive talent at the moment, but see, this is the thing. When you have great defense and you can play a great team defensive strategy, in practice, you're asking your players to go against that defense, that great defense, and kind of it ups their offense to a level that needs to be even better to kind of score on the defense they see every day. So when they get on the court against like a team that runs no defense, that's easy work for them. Like Pascal goes into easy mode because we've trained him this way in practices. So there's a method to a lot of the stuff that's going on. But let's get into that high bar where Masai likes to say where everyone kind of put in and the bar was at its highest because we had so many guys, really complete players in the prime of their career, really producing at a high level. So as you can see here, we got 2019 championship offense set because Gasol's part of this, so he wasn't on the team in 2018. So this was the kind of final playoff version of the team. And there is a thing about the season and how the Raptors play out the season. Let's say the first 20 games is test, see what new skills over the summer have been concreted enough to be game viable. Then we start working what that looks like into a sort of routine and system in the next 20 games. So the first 40 games is kind of like test, start to really figure out what's viable, playable wise, and see where the holes are. Hit trade deadline, obviously, patch that holes and start moving to what that set of offense looks like going into the playoffs for that year. Because every year it needs to really change. If you want to have a true chance, it's like this: the more versatile offense you have and the more development you have, the better success you're going to find. Because if the team's always reading off your oldest kind of stuff and can't analyze your newest stuff quick enough, that's when you get teams not prepared enough where you're able to utilize all types of different aspects of different play set designs where we focus on certain actions being run and then the options off that change and vary and do different things. And then there's also set plays out of timeouts and stuff, and that's more random random-esque in a sense of how they're supposed to be run. Because if you run one play too many times, uh, defense will know what the play is every time. So it's this kind of versatility. You always have to be onto a new kind of version of offense. It's always having like the next weapon in the bag they don't know about and pull it out. And then they're, oh, shoot, they're not ready for that type of. It's like war, the surprise attack and kind of numbers and talent. With the lesser numbers, you can win over a larger force with a certain surprise element or a combination. And that's what we build towards in trying to take advantage of all the advantages every player creates to every situation that is on the court. It's really interesting how it's all based on this very fluid next action offense. One action should birth three other options, right? And then once we pick an option out of those, we set up so that option has another three options. And we're always choosing the best option until eventually we have a wide open, high percentage shot. So we're asking the defense to adjust in the ways we can, but they can't. In a sense of we're building an offense against our own defense, in a sense. It's weird, but they're both based on read and react and IQ decision making. It's about the players choosing the right path of the three each time, or four or five. You know what I mean? Whatever, how many options we want to gear each guy up with depends on the skills they have, right? So skills over time increase those options and then increase the pathways, and then IQ, you have to develop to when to know when to use certain pathways. And Spicy is like the perfect example of how we want to build out an offensive game. But we can also see, and later on I'll talk about OG's kind of tandem role and how they've kind of crutched each other up in a sense a bit, but now it's kind of diversifying more. We'll get into it, but let's get into kind of, I think, the principle. Just let's get down to no names, what it is, bare just talking, right? So, three starting offense creators. And what offense creators are people in themselves that have enough in the bag that they are able to create offense against most defenses. Obviously, matchup curtails which of those which of the three offensive creators have a bigger night based on matchup, or scheme wise, if they're over defending on one of the options, we have two others to go to. And ultimately, you can't take away two starting offense creators by doubling, right? Doubling negates your ability to be this, right? And that's what we do. We take away the other team's offense creators and stop what they do to create offense for their other guys, right? So having three really key kind of momentum drivers in a sense of style variation as well. They all need to be different. They can't be the same redundant stuff. You see the Clippers where their two main options are so redundant and similar that you don't need a varied defense to beat the Clippers in a sense. If you have a good defense against that one type of style, you can kind of manipulate it to be solid against PG easily without any personnel change or any like style change really. It's like different dynamics of what you're trying to defend, and they're trying to do the same thing. So that's redundancy in a sense. And we need three creative offensive creators that are varied in the styles of which they create, right? So let's get into it a little bit more. But obviously, there's the starting five, and there's five players. So you need two other perfect fitting, versatile role players that play off these three guys, but also are in tandem with working with these other guys. Because it's all about connectivity. Team offense is based on everyone. When everyone has the ball at a certain time, there's rules where other people are supposed to be, and this kind of ever evolving. So when we have like in this year, we'll talk in this year, so just to be more specific on the examples. But so if Kawhi put his hand up and Lowry's on the perimeter, he dumps it into Kawhi where a spot he knows he's close to a spot, or he has a guy he can make a move and get to his spot easy. And if they kind of see what Kawhi's seen and hedge against it with another guy in there, Kawhi's job then becomes to pass the ball, right? So what should the other guys be doing when Kawhi's trying to make his move, right? So there's Kawhi has options, right? He has multiple options of what he can do. He can drive, shoot, or pass. Triple threat. Triple threats have three types of options in a sense. That's where I'm saying that three kind of basic road, three options or basic options. But then the pass is also subroutine to pass to. There could be three open guys or one open guy or two open guys. It depends on the other team's ability to shake defenders in that time and know whether if if they see the other defenders starting to come in, they're already positioned to know Kawhi's going to pass out of it. If the defender doesn't come, they know he's going to shoot it, so position to the rebound. It's always a next play action kind of. We're always reading and reacting to the defense and reacting how they react to us. And this is how we need to kind of always build that kind of IQ up. IQ is important to understand all this stuff and when to use it and when not to use it. And when all five guys are on a string, it's perfect. What it looks like when it's perfect. Right now, it looks really chaotic. Obviously, we're not really we don't know what options we should put around Scotty in certain positions, and then we don't know what options OG needs from initiating because we haven't tried that as much as we have now and starting to realize the issues in different little things. And we test through the season. That's what the season's for, perfecting certain things. And then maybe next year we work on a different style and we completely kind of come back with something new. But this style is always here. It's always creating styles on styles on styles and having the ability to call on them at any time because you have a core that's been together more than 2-3 years before you blow it up and tank or whatever, right? That's what real development minds want to be part of. This is a great experiment. That's why Rico Hines is in here now. He seemed that we really took a guy that we drafted in Siakam and took on Van Vliet, like undrafted, obviously. And now they're kind of our star guys. We haven't gone out and traded them and kind of looked for something else. Development guys like that. Jimmy said that that's really attaches him to the organization. And I think that's a lot of great stuff. But let's get into what it looks like. Maybe talk a little on the mold role stuff, but let's get into how each player fit. It was a perfect fit, man. This roster right here was great fit. So I guess we'll start off with the top down for Kawhi, 1A, the guy. Okay, so what I explained Kawhi's job pretty much. Like it's obviously Lowry's job as playmaker and leader of the team to make sure Kawhi gets the touches. When he puts his hand up and Lowry has the ball, Lowry's pushing it to Kawhi. Anytime someone has the ball and Kawhi puts his hand up, Kawhi gets the ball, right? That's kind of how the offense works. And then that usually immediately gets a shot from Kawhi or creates an advantage for another person. And that's where Spicy came in and was eating off all the advantage. When he sees a gap, he went down it like a freight train. And he really finished on those plays where kind of Kawhi was trapped and stuff. And that's who ate off the Kawhi double teams. Sometimes it'd reset around, we do a different play patterns, but a lot of the time Spicy was eating off Kawhi, right? So Spicy didn't necessarily need to be a playmaking at that time, but that's part in tandem of where that kind of plays off. And then obviously, like, let's go into obviously Spicy now. So role player position, offensive finisher. So finisher, like finishing on advantages created by others, and he wasn't being relied on to kind of create shots for others. He'd be in the corner hitting that three corner, you know what I mean? Or kind of slashing, doing different things, playing to reading the defense and attacking the gaps and stuff without the ball, right? And the role player esque position is because it's weird how this team works so beautifully. His position is actually in tandem with Gasol. Role player position, offensive hub. So like we can know Kawhi's one of the starting offensive creators, but number two is actually this Spicy and Gasol combo because Gasol played like a role player position in a sense, but his elite skill combined with Spicy's elite skill made an elite player in their own right. So that's why I think that third banana in a sense didn't look obvious in a sense, or second, and people thought it was all Kawhi, but this was the second kind of superstar on the team right here. This kind of fit that Siakam and Gasol were, and the kind of looks Gasol gave with the 5-out spacing. So we'd position Gasol at the top of the key where his three ball needs to be respected still, and have enough spacing because everyone's a shooter. Green's a shooter. Lowry's a shooter. Spicy's a shooter from the corner. Kawhi's a shooter, right? So they could all line out on the 3-point line, and that would leave the paint completely open for Spicy to do a cut. And if he gets ahead of his man, Gasol hits him, right? That's an easy offensive advantage creator. And in tandem, those positions worked beautifully, right? So let's go on to the third one and the GROAT. So the GROAT Lowry was actually captain of connectivity and the team being on one page and understanding when it's time to flip the switches to different modes and stuff like that. And he's really the kind of coach on the floor, kind of calling out the way different things should set up. And he's kind of like the Van Vliet now, where he kind of does this, where he calls out different things about the defense, and we get into a certain action, we prepare for the action, and then the options set up around that action, and we start the process of action to next action to next action to next action. Hopefully, in order in one of those action spots, we get a great shot, and that's how we build up our kind of half court offense. We kind of get a first action going that opens up to more actions, to more actions, to more actions, and eventually trying to finish one of those actions and always get the best kind of shot. But that also entails to not turning the ball over when we're moving from action to action, and we need certain guys to really be kind of the vocal points on the court to really organize and keep the guys on the same kind of page. The guys that can't read the offensive options as well and maybe have less responsibilities. It's about ability to make the right decisions, and then you get the responsibilities to do that on the court. And it's this kind of tandem of knowing the right decisions in the system, in the rules we make, and a mistake to a latent person that doesn't understand what we're keying in on may say that, oh, that's a bad play, but that necessarily wasn't what the aim of the system was or the intention of the player. Like, intent is always key. Like, moving with intent, defending with intent, like, you have to be doing something, making an impact, doing something in a sense of being out there on the court. And I think we prepare our guys to always know there's always something next to be doing in a sense of how the ball moves around on the court in a sense of offense and defense. We build that system out fluidly. It's not one size fits all. It's based around your players, and they dictate how the system runs. And it's based on what they do well and what they don't do well, and it's Masai's job to kind of have a fit that covers everyone's kind of weaknesses well, right? And Lowry was kind of the offense selector in a sense. If he's selected to Kawhi, some plays Kawhi would initiate the top. It's all fluid in a sense of what's happening. So if we have to recognize if Kawhi's at the top of the key, he's playing maybe a more of a Lowry role in a sense of trying to create a shot or maybe going for his own shot, and we play that differently, but similar to Lowry at the top of the key. And there's certain positions when certain players get the ball in a certain positions and how we have to support them, knowing what options and things they have to choose from and what it could be, right? So it's reading our own players too on offense. It's reading the defense, but reading our guys too. So knowing when to cut, seeing your defender turn his eyes, and your kind of guy on the ball sees that cut, he's gonna get it to you, right? So a lot of these things take IQ, but I think Lowry as a 2B in a sense from Spicy's 2A is based on, like, when it comes down to bare bones, game 7 kind of stuff, it goes to Kawhi first, then Spicy, then Lowry. But Spicy kind of can't create for himself, so it demands a certain setup for Spicy to be that option. But it was Kawhi, then Lowry, and then obviously we saw Van Vliet hitting some shots, and we'll go into that. But ultimately, the ranking system is preferably based on hierarchy in a sense of offensive hierarchy. So, and Lowry's main job was to create for Green, create for Spicy, create things for Gasol, create for Kawhi, create for everyone in a sense, and not look to take his own shot, which was more relied on in the past years because we had less of great finishers and scoring punch with experienced finishers in their kind of prime of their career in a sense, other than Spicy, but his role fit in so nicely with the starting five that it made it potent, even with Spicy not carrying too many responsibilities, but carrying an elite one in finishing in all types of scenarios, right? And I think Green is an interesting aspect into that. Obviously, he's that very basic one perfect versatile role player in a sense of he was there to fit the rest of the guys and be an option on the line. Kawhi could pass to Green, Gasol could pass to Green, Lowry could pass to Green, Spicy could exit a pass to Green. Green's posted where we know Green's posted, right? You know what I mean? So his role is very important as well, though, in how this whole offense runs. And he can't be a guy that needs touches to be working great. He's a cutter. He's a guy that enhances Lowry's playmaking ability, enhances Gasol's playmaking ability, enhances the advantages Kawhi creates when he dribbles the ball and they double team him, and there's open space for a guy to like kind of make a line to the basket, and Kawhi might see it, and Kawhi's an IQ guy, and we were working on his playmaking and helping him in that kind of direction and asking him to kind of maybe grow in that aspect, and he has, and you've seen how much growth he's continued after us as a playmaker. But it kind of really started it in Toronto with that playmaking and doing different stuff, and now we've done it with Pascal. He's gone through that fire in a sense of being doubled and knowing the options, and he knows everything now in a sense. Doubling Spicy doesn't work, doesn't throw us out of rhythm anymore because we know all the action sets around him. Everyone knows their places when something's happening with Spicy now because we went through it. That's what Masai said when he said we needed to see Spicy in these certain situations. We need to see Fred VanVleet in these certain situations and OG into these certain situations. I will talk about that in the next slide, but let's continue before it gets too long. And we had a bench combination, so we could fill in a lot of different things and get real versatile with these kind of different guys. So we would definitely bring in Ibaka. He played a lot of minutes in tandem with Gasol, which Ibaka was more of like a finisher and not as much of a passer, but a defender and a switchable guy somewhat. His speed was limited at that point, so I think we were relying on him to do a lot of mid-range stuff that Gasol wasn't great at. Gasol's was three and close to the basket. Ibaka was three and mid-range and close to the basket. So he's a more versatile scorer, but not versatile defender. So we are taking away from the defense a little bit. But Ibaka can be a versatile weapon in that. And Lowry was the main guy connected to him, and that would be the second honcho when Gasol was out, and Spicy would go back into more of a regular role player, still offensive finisher off Kawhi, and Lowry's different stuff that he would create, and Ibaka sometimes might have a dump pass in him and stuff when Spicy does a nice cut, but rarely, right? Ibaka was a sense of black hole in a sense, the talk of like a guy that's used more for finishing and not playmaking or passing or continuing the connectivity of play-to-play dynamics. See, that's where Fred VanVleet was good in that role, right? So he was used as a shooter, so he was like the 3 and D, but then he had an additional role of playmaking because his ability to make good decisions in the system. He always chooses kind of the best option of the three sometimes. Sometimes he misses and he might go for a different option. But most of the time, if you were to grade the guys on if they took the best path of the three, every game and every opportunity they had to go in a certain direction, VanVleet would be like one of those guys that's like 80%, 90% accuracy in a sense of what our philosophies and what everyone should be doing. So he's really steady in that sense where guys playing around him know where they should be because they know which option VanVleet's going to choose. It's probably going to be the best option. And in a sense, like move around him in a certain way like that, where his play, he can dictate what he's doing, and based on his ability and IQ, he can still mitigate the preemptiveness of defenders by doing different actions or passing and using timing. Timing something really key for him. He uses timing to his advantage a lot in offense where he moves the ball in certain ways in certain directions at certain times for a reason. And a lot of the time they're very productive passes in a sense of keeping the offensive connective in a sense, but sometimes we like at points there is like he as a leader and kind of like the guy managing what Lowry used to do. When the team's kind of tired, you got to take on that responsibility, hold the ball, make sure they can't take the ball. Even if you're tired, they can't take the ball from you, Lowry. And you need to kind of create something, create a couple of free throws, go in, use physicality on the body a little bit, go in there, get an and one or get a free throw, get like a space of time where your guys can kind of catch their breath. And the leader does that at times, reads the game, reads the guys, and that's all in part of being the offensive selector in a sense. Van Vliet wasn't really that at that time. He could run secondary and third action. So if they were on Kawhi, Spicy was taken out, and Lowry was out of the game, Van Vliet could utilize Ibaka a bit, right? And Green and Powell and whoever was in the game in a sense, he could utilize Spicy in his role player status based on just like not playmaking against the best sets of things, but the secondary actions and a lot of different stuff like that. So finishing the 3-pointer and playmaking and kind of controlling the tempo at times, he really showed a lot in this run, obviously. Powell, his role was really interesting. I think he was just, oh, I forgot to pee there. A role player position finishing. He was just more of like just like a combination of these guys in a sense of being taller than Van Vliet, but like faster than Ibaka. So like he could manage in that in between of where these guys couldn't handle. And he was used limitedly, right? I think obviously we've seen decision making. We saw who the best decision makers were on the team, and they got the most time because the system is the best when you have the best decision makers. And they're basing everything off the fundamental skills each player knows and tailoring the game towards that. So Danny Green's an excellent 3-point shooter, so Lowry knows he needs to get the, Green the ball in his shooting pocket the way he likes it often. And he knows he talks to Green, hey Green, how do you like it usually? You know what I mean? What's the limits of where you feel comfortable and how many shots you need a game to kind of talk to the guy, and it's about like caring about that guy's success. And Lowry was always big on that kind of get that guy the bag, get everyone the bag. You know what I mean? And that's behind the scenes his attitude when he would talk to people and stuff. Hey, let's get you more into the game and stuff. And I think that's the point guard's job. But it's also to manage expectations and know when Green's not in form tonight and to not pass him the ball. Like the point guard needs to be on the pulse of the team all the time. And it takes a lot of experience to know how guys are feeling or when's the opportunity to do just different things. And it takes time and experience and chemistry. I think if Spicy and Van Vliet see a situation, they just have to like kind of just say one word or just even a look could activate some kind of sort of play set between them. And that connectivity over time really allows like a lot of different things. Even though this team was kind of a little bit of a mashup, the core was a lot of players that were here before, additive 3 starters, which were heavily their own systems in themselves. Like Kawhi was an offensive system in himself. Gasol was kind of like an offensive system in himself. And Green was a great contributor to the system we already had with Lowry. And obviously DeRozan was in Kawhi's spot. And that's why we kind of failed before. I think we only had 2 options and then we were kind of playing patchwork. But this year we had three concrete, solid, prime offensive creators in a sense. And it really worked completely to everything. And obviously Lowry, Spicy, Kawhi could work with both sets. We saw how I was talking in between. But let's go on to how like we saw how this worked out, right? So let's see the starting bricks and kind of where we're building that foundation off again. And the decisions made in the run it back year. And obviously we talked about the bubble last episode in a sense that fans took the bubble serious and the management didn't. But let's continue into the plan of what it looked like going forward through that time, right? Decisions were made, they were actually made in the first half of the run it back season. Like what we got before the bubble was what we made decisions going forward after the bubble off of. Because I think they knew the bubble was kind of a, like a weird situation. You have to weigh each individual's kind of circumstances into the picture and kind of know or sense whether it was favorable or against kind of who they are as a player and whether to account that to bigger things or being just a bubble. And there was a lot of processing, obviously, that needed to be done. But I think the majority of the sample size was the like when we were on the 13 game win streak and all this kind of stuff going on, where we saw a lot of the things that we needed to see from I think these four specific players in a sense. I think Boucher in the run it back year was still in the kind of deep rotation. We still had the two center combo, but he was coming up into form and they were seeing him maybe long-term bench, but versatility like we were talking about in the previous slide. So the winning core left from the championship, and that's the key connectiveness. In a sense, we had to pay for our championship guys before. We had to pay for Kawhi. We had to like pay for kind of Ibaka a bit. We had to pay for like Gasol a bit. The experience they had at that winning level. But now we have our homegrown kind of guys built up the way we want them with the experience that they need to kind of know where to position the team long term. So we now need to test whether they can physically, in a sense of skills, ability. Have they truly grown to the point where they are pieces that can drive the next offensive creators in a sense, right? Offensive set creators. So first set would be the spicy set, obviously 1A. We're looking at him to be the 1/2 forward, so either the star or secondary forward official model one. So we were looking to get him up to speed ASAP. Like him being fast tracked and getting tons of possessions for creation on ISO and working through his passing game after learning when they're leaving gaps open for him to come and to trap him and when they're kind of real open gaps and kind of learning the IQ whether to drive and when to not drive. And you can see his decision making is way more on point. He's coming to those decisions a lot quicker because he's thinking about it less because he's seen it before. It's just about seeing it and then doing, right? It's just there's no there shouldn't be too much thinking involved in a sense of how we're trying to build out the kind of playmaking identity of our forwards in a sense. It should model in muscle familiarity, like that pass motion should be built in there and almost like a reflex in a sense to what we're building long term. And those are the things I think will build up into championship winning options, right? So ultimately it is about the center players, but it is knowing that Masai can find the perfect fit for whatever they need in a sense. And it's just about them individually getting to certain points where we can base a team structure around them that has the ability to win win in the playoffs, and has the opportunity to grow into a championship level contender team. We don't know whether this is the team per se at this moment. We have definitely good feelings because Spicy's turned it up MVP style. OG's finally taken the step that we are looking for him in this kind of role of 2A, where he was either supposed to be like the Kawhi-esque guy or the secondary Robin guy. And he's the alpha version in a sense of like we're not going to ask him to do as much creating as Spicy, and he can rely back on our other playmaker in Fred Van Vliet a little and Spicy a little because they are both fluent in playmaking now a lot more than before. And it's about over time, growth over time. They have to continue to take the steps towards what we think is the final picture and continuing to take those steps. And then eventually, sometimes they take the steps to the final picture and then overstep and continue going like Spicy, and we get unexpected results in certain directions based on having fair estimations and sometimes the players just being so good and just blowing those estimations apart in a sense, right? So there's a lot of different things at play when we're trying to mold these players out. We're trying to build them up like a building, a skyscraper, in a sense of just continuously build on layer on layer on layer on layer on layer on layer to the point where their bag is so numerous and they've seen like every kind of different thing. They can play any type of role in a positionless system because been put in circumstances where they've had to play those roles over time and slowly adjusted their game and learned through and refined the different aspects to their game. And this is what it's all about, the mold system, and adding different parts to that mix, seeing if he can take on another type of style, another type of style, another type of style in a sense, and see what parts of it that style he can utilize and what parts are just not feasible for the type of flow and what they want in their game. But it's always nice to have kind of like layout of different things so you know like you could go to it, emergency break the glass something. So we're always doing such great kind of well-rounded development, and it's not necessarily based on a willy-nilly system. These things are being hammered down through years and years and years of different things, and the ball goes to the guys that can prove to make the right decisions over time and show growth and continuously show growth and show better and better and better results in the decision making. And those are the guys that are allowed to make mistakes versus someone that's in there for, let's say, if Danny Green started to think he was a playmaker and started to try to run the offense, then Nick would pull him out, not make a big deal about it, and just go with like Norman Powell in that position and play whoever he had to play. He's not going to kind of deviate and let someone kind of railroad the team in a sense. It's a five-man unit. All of them should be very connected in what each other's doing and be always looking for the best option. That's all Nick cares about, the creation of those best shots. So sometimes it's early on, it's about seeing, I know, like, oh, Spicy created that great pass and the guy missed the shot. But that guy's not going to always miss that shot. But that pass, we're looking to fine tune it. We're looking to weaponize that more. We're looking for that where he creates the shot. The open shot's there. Okay, the guy missed it, but that's not what we're looking at this point. Later on, when we're looking to be more mistake free and we're tuning up for the playoffs, we're going to look for the shooter on the end of that to be more consistent and know that the playmaker has been run through the gamut in a sense of understanding how he needs to connect to that shooter to win because he's been doing it all season and we've been experimenting, refining, and doing different things. And this is OG season. It's always been kind of weird the Siakam OG tandem because Siakam's a year older, so it's almost like Siakam does something and then we repeat it with OG the next year. Siakam does all three corner balls and then we put OG there, and he's kind of built his game in the shadow of Spicy a bit, but he hasn't come up a little bit just based on like different things and how much we've emphasized cleaning up Spicy's elite ability to finish has put a crutch on OG to be a better 3-point shooter. And Spicy wasn't as good as a 3-point shooter, but now those things need to kind of reverse where OG needs to start be the guy that can fine tune his 2 game, and Spicy needs to be the shooter. So like they can play both roles and play tandem off each other. It's being effective off ball as effective as you are on ball. And we're both trying to build up OG's on ball game while building Siakam's off ball game, because we were building Siakam's on ball game and OG's kind of on ball game was lacking and he had to do his off ball game, and now his 3-ball is elite, right? And then Fred VanVleet's always been kind of like a vet. It's so weird, like his IQ level, because he's always been the shortest guy, the non-athletic guy in a sense of where the NBA talent is and where he's kind of been put his whole life in a sense. Prospects ahead of him more athletic are like, oh, if that guy could learn the fundamentals or have the heart Van Vliet had, he'd be an amazing player. But Van Vliet is still able to kind of, over time, he's sharpened that IQ to the point where that's all he needs to be effective. And it's weird. We're not super trying to develop him. We're trying to find rhythms and roles and try to figure out different things about Fred off ball, playing off Spicy and OG. And I think that was the view because of the limitations of height and stuff. We want him as like a more of a third option in a sense, and he's always the captain of connectivity in a sense. Well, the plan like pre Tampa, right? This plan changes again, and it's the only time it's kind of changed really, but 2 times, right? Kawhi leaves, that changes your highest talent player is going to another guy. So then we reinstate a new plan with Spicy as our best talent. But now then Masai made some mistakes on the centers and we took a lot of damage from tanking, but we have Scotty, which is now going to position to be the best probably player in time. So we have to kind of we have to build for the future and build now, but the plans change a little bit and it's augmenting. It's not fully understood yet, but this was the model before, and now we're feeding Scotty and trying to see where at the moment we're gonna use this course still, right? This plan is still the main bread and butter of what we're running at the moment. And Scotty will fill in at certain points and enhance things, like he'll play the Gasol role for now at least. We like him in the Gasol role in a sense while he works on the things he needs to work on there. And in time, he'll flip over to a guard or flip over to different positions based on like timing and where the guy the front office feels Scotty's at that perfect skill. Like, okay, he's at enough of the center thing. He's ready to kind of move into some more responsibilities, and we're always shifting his responsibilities all over the place. He's a very talented guy, a very high IQ guy, can handle a lot of input schemes, but he doesn't know the Raptors scheme. So it's a little bit of the cart before the horse in a sense in how we want to play it with Scotty. We have to kind of make sure he understands certain aspects of what we do before we kind of let him have total free reign. So that's why I think a lot of the time when we have the right competition or matchup, Scotty is kind of given the green light, and then other times it's very strict on what type of creation he's allowed to make in a sense. And Van Vliet's kind of instituted because we need more of the right decisions against a team that limits the decisions that we can make. If they're taking away 2 of the options and only the right option is left, and and that player needs to read that quickly and go for that third option, right? So it's like they might see the second option as maybe open and they pass into it, but it's not really open based on the personnel and reading the floor and stuff. It's a lot of different dynamics, and obviously FEV is the most experienced and kind of like the safety net for everyone playmaking wise, in a sense of the next possession we can get a really good shot because we can go back to FEV, but we're not looking to one man anything. We want a balanced attack of three offensive creators, and these guys need a lot of time. So that's what FEV was saying about role change and stuff. He wants to put OG in the kawhi actions. He wants to put Spicy in the actions more. It's a different role, and he's going to be like the spot up guy where OG was, and now OG is going to be doing actions to the basket where FBV was relied on to do actions to the basket, and we should see a higher percentage in makes off OG diving to the basket over time because he's going to work over this skill that we've asked him to do, and it's going to equate to something in the end. And we just need those proper mold and parameters and kind of teach them how to do it. Like we can't just say do it. You have to show them how to do it and what they're doing and how they're doing it and stuff like that. And that's all really part of the mold system, like where we kind of see where a guy's at and we augment what he is in a sense. So this was the kind of plan before we got Scotty, but Boucher bench, yeah, he was like after the center code got dropped because we realized he couldn't be a center. He went to first forward, second type. So the second type is like a faux spicy in a sense. Alpha 2, which like yeah, is I'll figure out what Boucher's more as like because his role is evermorphosis. He's so versatile. We can use him in so many different ways. It's hard to characterize what his role is, but he's gotten a lot of unique tidbits from every kind of different like player he's been around and coaches and stuff like that. And he's really like a morphosis of the Raptors' entirety as a team in a sense, and he's relied on the effort that he brings. That's his like kind of what he brings, the effort and the size and versatility. And I think IQ wise, yeah, we understand he's not starter level kind of IQ decision maker in many actions, but he definitely puts in the effort and is one of those solid effort guys you need to fit around your core that's been playing with your core and understands your core guys that can really be a piece to help all three a lot better than someone coming in and not really knowing FEV, OG, and Spicy too much. And it's his job to kind of teach the other guys how to play around these three guys, right? And that's part of the Raptors' ways too, and how we do it. We frame a lot of the actions around your core, but your role players need to know their role and where they're supposed to be and what they're doing on offense and defensive in rotations and spotting up or cutting or understanding how it's supposed to be, right? So I think it's getting pretty long here. I'm gonna go into well, because Scotty and I've kind of said what I need to say about that, so I don't really need to kind of pull up another slide to kind of show Scotty into the equation at the moment when it's not even that solidified at this second, right? It the team moves in kind of like I said, we augment the offense every year to have new different things we're working on and growing towards and having we're always keeping the bar high and challenging the best players to do something new, and they kind of love that atmosphere that Nick builds of kind of challenging them but then rewarding that skill when they've actually hit it and use it in game and have it become part of them as a player in the NBA on the court. It isn't just work on it and we'll never see from that skill again. there is a reward at the end of the road, and I think that's a lot of what the skill development is. And we're trying to train these skills into winning skills, not just skills, period, but winning skills that can affect winning on the NBA floor. And that's the kind of the way you build championship winning, by a lot of winning in a sense. So
a much, much better place and people can think better. Um, I think everybody is in a better place, to be honest. And even if, you're coming back, you're learning as you go. Yeah, you're learning from all these experiences. And I know he is. I know the fan base, people have been hard on him. But trust me, Pascal is a prideful man. Pascal is an unbelievable basketball player. We're not trying to, people come up maybe because he wasn't playing well, people come up with all this stuff. Pascal is here. Pascal is a Raptor and he's going to play with us. So, yeah, the players all found it difficult, like one way or the other. But I also respect them for the way they tried and gave it everything.
and there was some few words from Masai about how things are when times get tough. And we've seen what happened with Spicy. Things were tough. The fan base reacted to the now too much and wasn't seeing the full picture. And at this time again, it's happened again, but with the current team where Spicy is now a proven guy and we're doing it, well, everyone's doing it to Van Vliet and whoever, Scotty's getting some fire, you know what I mean? And we need to be patient and understand these guys are trying. They want to win. And we're learning through it. And it's always working towards something. And know that we're focused on that is what Masai is kind of trying to give people hope in a sense. So housekeeping, always got to start off by saluting the real ones for showing out. And I was doing some live testing to see how I felt calling the game, talking to people pre-game, and I left a clip that I felt is deserving of being left up at least for a bit now, so people can check out what I look like and stuff, like a face reveal, I guess. But also, there are a lot of things in the next few weeks that I want to touch on, and this was talked about in that live stream. So if you want to kind of see where my attitude is with the direction of things at the moment, you can maybe check that out. But always, always, always check out Raptors Freak YouTube channel, Raptors Freak Lex, and the Raptors Freak Nation, always representing the real ones and really standing by the team and being critical, but also positive critical, talking about the things that they're working on, that they're trying to do. It's not just like black and white whether you can do something. There is a lot of gray in between, and understanding gray is being fair and knowledgeable as a fan and understanding a lot of circumstances go into playing, and someone that really speaks that truth. Well, of course, Raptors Freak Nation, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Check it out, the stream all the time, every day, right? But I got to give another shout out to Chris Boucher, who turned 30 but has an amazing podcast where he goes into that stuff. He goes into the actual gray areas and talks and gives you the truth, makes it very crystal clear on a lot of different things if you're truly listening to him and want to take in what he's saying. And that's a great resource, and I appreciate Chris being on the team and providing that resource for the guys on the team, but also us as fans. Like, he has no responsibility to us in a sense, but he brings the truth to us and feels like he's making a difference on his platform and the platform that he, as a successful man, has worked towards and created. And we've helped them do that, and it's a beautiful relationship. Boucher and the Raptors, I love his story. I love the direction. He's been in a slump, but we know injuries have kind of hampered and overexhausted the role he was in before. And we like him in that perfect role where he was second half last year with Precious, and Precious is back, and so we're getting him back into that tag team, that D Generation X, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. You know how they do. So in addition, I wanted to kind of mention. Yes, I said Champagne. Well, I had a feeling that Champagne, and I had a view and an opinion that Champagne was longer for the team because I saw the upside in what he could become. But obviously, the now plans have kind of superseded that kind of plan, and maybe I'll talk about that if we get some movement in 2 days, because this is Friday the 13th, and cutoff date for converted, and we see two players that got their two A's converted, and that the deadline is January 15th for everyone that wants to know. And we did touch on the two A's in an earlier kind of like two-part series where we went over all these guys. And now we kind of have the chapter closed for Champagny, but we also have other two-way guys that are starting their own journey in that place, and we'll always kind of be cycling through these guys, and some stick like Boucher, and then some don't, just based on redundancy. And Boucher had no redundancy at that time, so it opened the space for him to flourish. But now Champagne's on the Miami Heat where they have a position and space for him to flourish. So sometimes it is timing with the younger guys and knowing that he was more of a long-term project, someone that you build up early and kind of take through the years. And we just couldn't have the roster spot there. And we'll see what happens with it. I think there'll be movement on the 15th. I think they might convert Downton, but we'll see. That's my call. Salute real ones. Project Truth always. Logical Raptors Fanatic out. Mike G. Mic drop.